Hello, Arsalan. Hello, Ida. So shall we extend a round of applause to the director, Arsalan Amiri, and his co-screenwriter, Ida Panahandeh. Okay, so thank you very much, Arsalan. Thank you, Ida, for joining us from Tehran for this screening. So I'm sure the audience really loved it. I can hear them gasping and laughing, and mainly gasping about the story as the story unfolds. So I'm sure they have a lot of questions to ask you, but maybe I'll just kick off this session by asking you I think a very basic question. What actually inspired you in writing this horror, thriller, policier story?
Yeah, thank you for coming and watching film in this hard situation during this pandemic. You come to the theater and watch the films. I appreciate it. The concept of the Zalava is about belief. My father, one of my grandfathers, has some experience about some strange story. Told me one of my grandfather's story about a genie. Then after years, my father, when I was wondering, I was thinking about an idea for making my first feature film. My father told me a story about one of my grandfathers, one ancestor, who had captured a kind of demon. We say jinn in Islamic termination. Islamic, we say jinn. It is a kind of demon made by fire, but it's like, something like human, and sheep, mix of them. And my father told me the story. One of my ancestors captured a demon, and my grandfathers, that demon should obey my grandfather's order, like bringing water from river, like take care of shipping, like shepherd. And it was the like flicker. It was for inspiration, this image and this story, this concept. It was for my first step to write a screenplay. It was the first step and inspiration.
So how did you work with Ida to develop this idea into a screenplay, and how did you actually shape this along genre lines so that it really looks like a thriller, but I'm sure that there is some kind of a political dimension to it?
Yeah. Ida and me, we worked together more than 50 years, maybe 60 years. And we were classmates in university, and we start making film together. And this is a long journey. We work together and we share our ideas. Sometimes Ida, direct the film, and I am in behind the scene as a scriptwriter and editor. And this is after years. The first time I directed a film, and Ida was behind the scene as a consolator and scriptwriter. And it was new experience for us because the Ida's movies is mostly social movie, like Iranian style, and a kind of poetic social movie. And because Ida's character is like this, and I have enough
flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility to work with Ida, like to social drama and poetic films. But this is the first time Ida should, be flexible with my character. And I don't know, it was hard for her or not. You can explain, yeah.
Yeah, it was very difficult for me working with Arsalan because of the humor he has and because the atmosphere of the film was very, very different from my cinema and my movies. But I remember the first time his father told us about this demon, one of his grandfathers was captured. It was a very crazy story. And we laughed a lot. Of course, we didn't believe that. But Arsalan told me, wow, we can make a film about this, about belief, how people can believe such stupid things. So the journey of Zalava started from that evening. His father told us the story. Yeah,
7 years ago, maybe now 8 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very new film, especially for Iranian cinema, because as you know, Iranian dramas are mostly focused on social issues, and this supernatural story with black humor, black comedy, it's very new even for our cinema, for Middle East cinema. Of course, I know that in East Asia, you're very familiar with this kind of dramas, Korean, Japanese, Hong Kong movies, but for Middle East, it's very new. And I hope you have enjoyed it.
Yes, we did enjoy it very much, this film. But the film was set, I think, in the late 1970s, actually, a little bit before the revolution, which brought about the establishment of the Islamic Republic. So why did you actually decide to set the story in this particular setting?
When we talk about the concept of belief, when you talk about belief, I think when we travel, we journey to the history, this kind of, we have the contrast, we have the challenge between belief clearly to different belief clearly, because nowadays, social media and, travel, every people know each other more than 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years ago. For example, we traveled to Hong Kong 2 times, and this is easy traveling to Hong Kong. And we know now Hong Kong people, and your culture, Chinese culture, Hong Kong, and we know what is difference between Hong Kong and China, between, the culture issue, every issue. This is because of the social media, we know more about each other. But when we travel to story, when we journey, we come back to the 50 years ago, the nations didn't know nothing about each other. And, it is complicated. It is complicated to, be tolerate the other beliefs. It is hard for some people, know about some strange belief. Because of that, I decided to go that time before, 40 years ago, in every corner of the world, it was that, a strange situation, in Chile, in US, in Russia, everywhere. That decade, it was complicated about a political issue and everything.
Okay, so as I said, I'm sure the audience will have some questions to ask you, Arslan and Ida. So maybe we just open it up to the floor to see whether there are any questions. If you do have any questions, please raise your hand, and then my colleague will pass you the microphone. Okay, any questions you'd like to ask Arslan and Ida? Yes, the gentleman.
Hello. I really like the tension that you built up to the last scene, but I would like to ask about in the scene that I remember when the sergeant suspects that he's possessed in the police station, and then there's a rabbit coming out, and afterwards when I remember when the scene that he went to the Zalava village, there's also a rabbits following him. So I would like to ask, is there any special implication about the use of rabbits in this film? Thank you.
میگه که توی ایستگاه وقتی که داره میترسه خرگوش رو میره وقتی داره میره توی دهکده خرگوش رو دوباره میره منظور چی بوده خرگوش؟
The concept of film is about, mystery. A part of this film is a kind of hybrid genre. We mix 2 or 3 different genre. We have it that you said about the genre, a kind of is horror, mystery, drama, and about that two scene, I wanted to make some, add a mystery to film. The Zalava, and we in the first scene, they said the قاچاقچی traffic. They Zalava, and yeah, they do the traffic like a human in animal traffic. قاچاق حیوان.
Yeah.
The Zalava people, their job is a traffic about animal. They capture some animal and they sell it to the other people.
They hunt rabbits. They hunt rabbits and sell them illegally, because, for example, in this story that Arsalan has made, hunting animals is forbidden. And that's why sometimes even in that night that people are coming to
coming to village
to Mali's Dr. Mali's house, you can see rabbits on their builds. They have hunt some rabbits, and that's why you see rabbits in maybe in the corners of the village.
That rabbit escape from the hunters.
And I think in addition, those rabbits are the kind of source of horror. If you want to scare something, if you feel scary inside, you always maybe find something to scare about, So when you don't feel it, when you can be strong and powerful, then you can just I don't know, you cannot see these kind of stupid things. So I think it depends on your mind. When your mind is scared of something, then you can always find this stupid or strange things around yourself, in the world you live in. So I think it depends on your character, what you want to see in the world around you.
Okay, so we'll see whether there are other questions from the audience. Anyone with a question that you'd like to add that later?
Thank you. Such a wonderful film. I want to ask you about the ending. The ending leave me like keep thinking, what's going to happen to the villager? They seems to be too happy. That is so cruel, like to see that doctor die in front of them, and they killed, And also, what will happen to the officer? What do you think? Will he just leave the village and continue with his lonely life, or? So can you give us some guide about the ending, please?
It is difficult for me explain the ending. When you write a screenplay, you start a journey, and character and the situation say to you, what should the end this story? It was not my decision. It was the concept of story. It was the narrative that we started and we ended. We can, we could finish the film with some happy scene, like I know, with some happy scene and finish it. But the concept was about the belief. Dangerous, how could a kind of strange belief be dangerous, and that ending after film finish, we have a hero, a kind of hero with doubt. He has doubt to the strange things and how he did his job. He did right or not, I should explain to you, our hero, our surgeon, after the film finished, he thinks about and how we can treat with these strange people, with conversation or with some
pressure gun,
confrontation.
you know,
or violence.
or compromise with these people, with these radical people, how we should deal with radical people. We should compromise, we should confront with them, you know. So, you know, every path you choose could have different consequences. So Arsalan thinks after the film finishes, maybe surgeons start to think logically which way is the true way to deal with radical people or radical beliefs, you know.
And to aware some superstitious people, how we can aware them, like with violence or with conversation, how we should do it.
Okay, so maybe we'll see whether there are any other questions from the audience. I think we have time for one more question from the audience. Anyone? Okay.
Hi, thanks for joining us in Hong Kong. It's quite fun to see something different from the typical really serious type of Iranian films. I just want to ask about the sets, like the choose of the village, and do people still live in that kind of villages in Iran? And could you talk us about setting it up and why choosing that location? It's quite pretty. But yeah, thanks.
خیلی روستا زیبا بود و هنوز مردم در اون روستاها اونطوری به اون شیوه زندگی میکنن.
The village, it was near my city. I'm Kurd. I'm come from Kurdistan, and our culture is Kurdish. Our language is Kurdish, and in that film, in Zalava, the people mostly talk with a different language as Iranian language. They talk Kurdish, and the culture is Kurdish, and village is Kurdistan, is a village in Kurdistan. But the costume and the atmosphere of film is belonging to, I think, 40 years ago, 15 years ago. These days, every village is, modernized, becomes modernized, and it was hard for us to find a village like be a kind of primitive and be old without modernization. It's rare. This kind of village is not, now we can't, it's difficult to find this kind of village. Nowadays, every village become, modern, like everywhere in the world. Yeah.
It's difficult, but still you can find this kind of village that you see in the film in faraway villages in Kurdistan and many parts of Iran. You can see, they have electricity, they have gas, they have oil, they have telephone lines, everything, but still the alleys are still like that. And government, if they have, in some parts, government want these villages to keep their identity as they had in the past, so this is a kind of cultural conservation of our history, of our architecture, to conserve these villages, like, to remain them, to conserve them. So you can easily find them in faraway villages, but not in near villages that they are near big cities. It's very difficult, but still you can find, yes.
Of course, the lifestyle might have changed, but Aslan and Ida, I mean, but the superstitions or the mentality, have they changed a lot since the 1970s? That is, I mean, would something like that, something which happened in your film, would this actually happen now in a village in Iran?
تفکرات در واقع خرافی عوض شده از اون موقع یا نه هنوز میتونیم پیدا شده.
Yeah, we can find it even not only in Iran, even in, during the Trump the administration.
Presidency.
Yeah, but during the Trump presidency, even in US, even in every corner of the world, we can find superstitions even there exist. as like Iran and every corner in the world. You know, the Zalava is a symbolic story. It could have happened every corner in the world, not especially in Iran or Kurdistan. Yeah, still we can find some superstitious people in Iran and everywhere. Yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, sadly, everywhere. I mean, the mob exists everywhere. It's not just in Iran or not just in an Iranian village, but it can also happen in the US, in other countries, and also around the world. I'm sure the audience, they must have a lot of questions to ask you, Arsalan and Ida, but sadly, we're running out of time. So thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. And thank you so much for giving us the film. Yes.
Thank you.
Another
Thanks a
round
lot
of
for
applause.
having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much,
Thank you.
Aslan. Thank you, Ida. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Hope,
Bye-bye.
hope see you
Thank
in
you.
Hong Kong next year.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
with the next film, I'm sure. Thank you very much. See you.
Yes,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
physically.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.